If you could only eat one last meal before you died, what would it be? Death row inmate Brandon Bernard chose a meat lover's pizza and a brownie. This is Death Row Diner. We're going to start by making the pizza dough the night before. This is Stan Mixer. We're going with Adam Ragusea's New York style pizza. It's a recipe he's done twice. I'm starting with his older version. He's updated it since then, but I figure I'm doing enough pizzas on this channel, I'll get to the newer one eventually. So we're going to start here with a bit under a quarter of a cup of warm water, 1 TSP of active dry yeast, and 1 TSP of sugar. Mix it together, then we're going to let it sit for 5 minutes to make sure the yeast blooms. You don't actually need to do this, but if you don't and your yeast is dead, you won't know until it's too late. Next we're going to add the main ingredients. I'm also going to halve all the ingredients of his recipe since it makes 4 pizzas, and I really should not be eating 4 pizzas in a week. So after adding a cup of warm water, we're going to add half a TBSP of sugar, salt, and about 1/8 of a cup of olive oil, and then 2.5 cups of bread flour. Affix your dough hook and let it start kneading. So this recipe ends up with a drier dough ball than the previous pizza video I did. He says in his revised version that he now uses a wetter dough for this kind of pizza, that the wetter the dough, the crispier the crust ends up being. But it's also a little trickier to work with. Although, as you're going to see soon, a drier dough is a little tricky to work with too sometimes. So after kneading for a few minutes, we're going to take it off the dough hook and add a bit more flour because it's feeling a little too wet for what we're going for here. After another few minutes of kneading, that feels more like it. Now that the dough's ready, we're going to separate it into 2 parts. Since we halved his 4 pizza recipe, this is going to make 2. And then we shape each part into a ball. Then put it in an oiled container, ideally a round one if you want your pizza to be round. And then cover it and put it in the fridge overnight. We're also going to prepare the sauce the night before. And with this sauce, we're not cooking it because that's what he says not to do. We've got some San Marzano tomatoes here. He says to drain out the juices and just use the whole tomatoes themselves, but I'm too lazy for that. We've got about 1/8 of a cup of olive oil. Then before we do anything else, we're going to blend this with a stick blender. Then, once it's relatively smooth, we're going to add in a bit of sugar and a bit of salt and what should be oregano. I don't have plain oregano. I have Italian seasoning which has oregano in it, so I'm going to use that. And a squirt of tomato paste. Then we're going to stir it all together. I guess I could have added all the ingredients and then stick blended it all together, but then you might have like pureed herbs. That might be a little weird. And there it is all together, and leave it in the fridge overnight. Next day, we're gonna start with the end and get working on dessert. Set your oven to 350. So we're gonna be using the Brownie Recipe from tasty.com, made by Alvin Zhou. Chop 8 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate, save half of it, and melt the other half. Now I'm usually a boxed brownie mix boy, and when it gets to things like this, you realize how much more complicated it is making it from scratch, but we'll see how it holds up. So we're using a double boiler system here, simmering water on the pot below and then another metal pot on top where it's not quite touching the water, and we're basically just using the steam to heat the bowl to melt the chocolate. Next, to a bowl, add 1 1/4 cups of sugar and 12 TBSPs of melted butter. Oop, that's not quite all the way melted, but it'll probably be fine. So either use a hand mixer or mix with your hands and get that all creamed together. Then crack in 2 eggs and a splash of vanilla. Continue to mix until combined. Then we're going to add in our melted chocolate and mix that well too. Then we're going to sift in 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour, 1/4 of a cup of cocoa powder, and a pinch of salt. Always a pinch of salt. Sift that into the other mixture. I'm using kosher salt here, so it's not going to fit through the holes, so I'm just going to dump it all in at the end. As long as there's no major clumps going in, that's all that matters. Next, we're going to gently fold it together. Don't use the whisk anymore. You don't want to over mix it at this point or it'll become cakey. To keep it the brownie texture that we want, we're just going to fold it in just enough that it gets incorporated together. Then, add in those chocolate chunks you saved from earlier and fold those in as well. We've got an 8x8 baking dish lined with parchment paper. Gonna pour a mixture in here. Spread it out semi-evenly. Then bake for 20 to 25 minutes, depending on how fudgy you like them. I went a little over 25 and they were still super fudgy, so do what works for you. Next for the pizza, it's a meat lover's pizza, so let's get some meat. Make sure your oven is set to preheat to the highest temperature it'll go, 550 for me, convection if you got it. We got some bacon here that I chopped. I cooked it before I chopped it. I feel like raw bacon is not going to have enough time to cook just on the pizza itself, so cooking the bacon ahead of time is going to get it nice and crispy. We've got a sausage here. Italian sausage would probably be more traditional, but I went with a honey garlic. I like the flavor of a honey garlic sausage, and I think that combined with the other meats would go really well. So we're going to cut open the casing and make little sausage bits. I'm not cooking these ahead of time. I feel like they're small enough that they should cook through on the pizza alone. We'll see. And of course we've got some pepperoni. Now we're going to prepare our pizza. For those keeping track at home, this is where things start to go wrong. I'm using a metal pizza peel here, which I shouldn't be doing. I'm going to dust it with cornmeal to hopefully allow the pizza to not stick to it, which, as you'll see in a few minutes, fails miserably. Then we've got our pizza dough from the other day. Gonna take it out of the container and start stretching it out. Adam Ragusea recommends the gravity stretch method, where you hold it at the top and kind of pinch the crust out as you rotate it so that the pizza kind of stretches down. And so far this is a lot more effective than the pan pizza video where it just didn't want to stretch out at all. Although around now I start to realize that even though this is a drier dough, it's extremely wet and covered in olive oil, and the amount of cornmeal I put on that pizza peel is not going to be enough. So I'm just going to put this somewhere while I add a bit more. That ought to do it. That'll definitely be enough, right? Let's get this guy as close to a circle as I can get and plop it down there. Not looking too shabby. Now I know we got to work fast so it doesn't stick to the peel. So let's add our sauce, a layer of Parmesan cheese, a bigger layer of mozzarella cheese, then try to place our meat as quickly and evenly as possible. At this point, our oven with our pizza stone in it has been heating up at 550 degrees for about an hour, and we're gonna simply just slide this pizza right off the peel. Nope, that is solidly stuck on there. Let's try to see if I can push it off with the spatula thing. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, it's all just collapsing in on itself. This whole thing is a complete disaster. Why am I doing this? Maybe if I stick it under the pizza and just really try to just pull the whole thing off. Nope. And now it's stuck to the spatula thing. Alright, I'm just gonna shove what I can onto the stone. Oh yeah, just losing half the toppings, cheese is spilling everywhere. Oh, this is going great. This is going great. What's left of it managed to make it to the stone, so anyway, then you just cook it until the pizza's done. Ah, look at that nice, beautiful, perfect pizza. I mean, to be honest, other than the shape, it does look pretty good. It doesn't look anything like a thin New York style pizza, and the pizza stone's a bit of a casualty. Are they supposed to look this rough after using them only a couple times? Maybe we'll upgrade to a pizza steel for the next time. Anyway, time to plate up. And there we have it. A nice, sloppy looking pizza. But as long as it tastes good, that's all that matters, right? To quote J. Kenji Lopez Alt, doesn't matter, still pizza. And it does taste really good. Like I said, it doesn't look anything like a New York style pizza. It's super thick and puffy for some reason. Probably because I folded it on top of itself a bunch of times. But what are you gonna do? And as skeptical as I was about the brownie, just because I'm a pedestrian box brownie mix kind of guy, this was a darn good brownie. Super fudgy, super delicious. Would definitely try it again. The website's not called Tasty for nothing. So other than its simplicity, I mean, they could have added a few other components here or there. The meal, a solid A. The dessert, a solid A. So I'm gonna have to give it 8 out of 10.